We've got some pretty enticing trade rumors coming your way on today's show. But first, I had someone comment on yesterday's episode saying there's nothing more I hate than the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. So if you hate the Chiefs, or if you hate the Raiders, or even the Chargers, make sure you subscribe to the channel because you're going to fit in quite nicely here. What's going on, Broncos country? Matthew Peterson here from the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports, breaking down the latest trade rumors surrounding the Denver Broncos because yesterday I had a pretty big NFL news bombshell drop regarding Chicago Bears linebacker Roquan Smith, who requested a trade on Tuesday after failed contract extension talks with the new regime in Chicago, said that they were not trying to reach a deal in good faith, and he's pretty upset, so he wants out of Chi-Town. Now, ESPN, along with NFL.com, picked Denver as a trade destination for Roquan Smith. So we're going to break down the idea of the Broncos landing one of the best linebackers in football, which would put this defense over the top. I mean, the linebacker position is the only part of this defense that's a bit of a question mark heading into this season. Now, the Bears probably looking for a second-round pick, something the Broncos cannot offer. Now, I'm going to put up together a trade package that might be enough, but I'm guessing there will be other teams that they really wanted Roquan that could offer a second. They're going to win the bidding war for him. Now, here's what Jeremy Fowler put in his write-up. The Broncos have been actively searching for linebacker help. General Manager George Paton faced Smith twice a year while a Vikings executive until 2021. He knows well what the player can do. He also isn't keen on giving up draft picks, especially after the Russell Wilson deal drained capital. But the fit would make a lot of sense. It does make a ton of sense. And then there's the whole thing of, Roquan Smith, he's one of the 5 best linebackers in football. Since he came into the league as a rookie back in 2018, 5 sacks to start his NFL career. Last year, he had a career-high 163 tackles. This Bears defense has been one of the better defenses in football the last few years, and Roquan Smith has been a staple of that. I mean, if you've never seen him play, if you never watched the Bears lose to the Packers on Sunday Night Football in Week 12, he was the only good part about that Bears team for the last year or two. And to get him in a trade would be awesome for the Broncos. I cannot overstate that enough. Now, can they get it done? Jeremy Fowler, in his write-up, also had this tweet where he shared, "The guy is a baller. NFL execs help us pick 10 potential trade fits for Roquan Smith. Some teams I talked to today didn't see anyone giving up a first-round pick for Smith." That's good for Denver, right? Because if no one can offer a first, or if no one's going to offer a first-round pick for Roquan, which is kind of weird because he's worth first-round pick talent. He really is. Whatever the Bears end up getting for Roquan, if he is traded, is not going to be enough. Roquan Smith is going to be better than whatever second or third round pick they get for him. But the linebacker position this day and age, just not valued like it used to be, with teams passing more than running ever before. Now, here's my trade idea to get Roquan to Mile High. The Bears receive this year's third-round pick. Now, Denver has 2, and we'll remind everyone of their draft capital later on. Next year's 4th, and Dalton Risner, because the Bears' offensive line's pretty crappy. Maybe they want to help Justin Fields a little bit. Instead of looking for more receivers, maybe the Broncos can sweeten the pot by adding a young offensive guard who sure has been a bit disappointing the last few seasons, but he has not been a dumpster fire, okay? He is still a starting caliber guard in the NFL. And the Broncos, they get Roquan Smith. Now, I'm curious what you guys have to say about this trade. Would you do it? T for trade or P for pass? I would do it in a heartbeat. Listen, if you were to get the notification, the Denver Broncos have traded for the Denver Broncos have traded for Roquan Smith, you would be ecstatic. You would not be thinking, oh no, what do we get? A 2024 4th-round pick was going to be a Hall of Famer. Come on, guys. It's Roquan Smith. If you can get Roquan for a 3rd-round pick and toss in another day 3 pick, and sure, Dalton Risner, or maybe like a KJ Hamler was an interesting idea, I would do it still, but losing Tim Patrick does not make that any easier. But at the end of the day, Roquan Smith is a better player than KJ Hamler, and he's going to be a better player than whoever you were going to select in the third round, okay? If the opportunity is there, I hope George Paton takes advantage of it. The only hiccup is the money. That's a pretty important one too, because here are the top 5 highest paid off-ball linebackers, and Roquan is probably looking to be either number 1 or right behind Darius Shaquille Leonard. It's a pretty price to pay for a position that's declining in value as of late here. And that might be where Paton goes, yeah, I'd love to have Roquan. Not for $20 million, right? Now, looking at the cap hits for 2023, the Broncos currently are in the negative for 2023. Now, the cap's a myth. Every year, the Saints are in the negative, and they end up like $50 million in the positive or something ridiculous like that. So don't look at this and go, it's impossible. They were already paying 4 guys $18+ million. There's no way they could add another mouth to feed there. Yeah, it's definitely going to be more difficult. But listen, at 25 years old, Roquan Smith is just a player you do not want to pass up on if the opportunity presents itself. The salary cap's a myth. It's also going to go up, right? It's always going to go up. So it might seem like a big hiccup right now, but at 25, you got to take advantage of the idea or the possibility of getting a defense with Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory, Nick Bonito, Baron Browning, Roquan Smith at the next level, PS2, Justin Simmons in the secondary. That's a defense that even if Russell Wilson only puts up 24 points against the Chiefs, Kansas City might not score more than 23. I'm just saying, Roquan Smith would be more than a cherry on top here. He'd be a whole freaking new dessert. He'd be a creme brulee at an ice cream bar. That's how good of an addition that would be for this defense. Like I mentioned, there is one tiny hiccup. Does George Paton want to spend a lot of money for an inside linebacker? It's a position group we are seeing NFL GMs not be crazy about. And I think we got to look at we have a brief history of what Paton has done so far in the draft. And we talked about this on yesterday's show. He had the opportunity to draft some off-ball inside linebackers in this past draft class. He passed on them, right? He picked Bonito at 64 instead of a handful of these guys who were still on the board. He picked Dulcich at 80. Remember Nakobe Dean? We talked about picking him at 9. He fell all the way to round 3. Still didn't want him. Now, maybe that's not because he doesn't want an inside linebacker. Maybe he just didn't like any of these guys more than Bonito and Dulcich, and that's fine here. But to be my own devil's advocate, maybe there is a bit of an affinity between George Paton and inside linebackers, all right? Eric Hedholm from NFL.com putting this out saying, GM George Paton was also a senior member of a Vikings front office that used top 50 picks on linebackers Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, suggesting Paton might value the position more than some other talent evaluator. So there is something to be said of, hey, Matthew, it's not exactly true that Paton hates drafting inside linebackers early on, or he doesn't want to put a ton of resources into that position. Instead, he'd rather go on the cheaper side with Josie Jewell, 2-year, $11.5 million, and Jonas Griffin. Now, we're bringing back a classic here at the channel. It's letter time, baby. It is absolutely letter time. So if you want your name to be included in a handwritten letter that I will scribe to George Paton, type me down in the comment section. We did this with Russell Wilson. We did this back last November to Vicathy Fangio, or Victor, I learned was his actual first name, to say, hey, figure it out. Can't say it worked, but hey, it's something. So if you want to be on a letter heading to George Paton, type me down in the comment section. Next segment on today's show, we got an interesting Darkhorse trade candidate. What about Dalton Risner? Okay, so Mile High Huddle picked Risner as a Darkhorse trade candidate. Now, this is a name we have seen tossed around a little bit as a potential trade piece for the Broncos. Second-round pick that's entering the final year of his contract, and there's some buzz out there of the 2026-round pick out of Fresno State, Moody, taking his job at left guard. Now, Moody is injured at the moment, so that doesn't really help the argument of, well, you could see like a complete guard change, right? Belly takes Glasgow's spot at right guard, and Moody takes Risner's spot at left guard. Maybe they trade one of those two guards then to get some draft capital back. Now, Risner last year, according to PFF, he wasn't that all bad, right? If you just looked at these right here, you wouldn't walk away thinking, why do you want to get rid of that guy? But if you watched him play, it feels like it's not progressing from his rookie year. That's what I'll go with, okay? You're not seeing the Kansas State Wildcat get better and better as the season goes on. He's also not the best run-blocking guard. And in a new scheme in Denver that's very reliant on the offensive linemen being quick like cats, Risner may not be the best fit necessarily. Now, the other thing is, maybe Paton goes, we need more draft capital. We have seen this graphic 1,000 times. But there's something to be said about a team going into a draft with only 5 picks. Last year, it was the Dolphins who had the least amount of picks in the draft. They had 4. Does Paton want to be at the bottom of the draft pick barrel? He usually, we don't have a huge history on the guy, but he's a GM who's not like the Rams. He's not F them picks. He wants closer to double-digit picks than 5. So if he could see a way where he picks up some extra picks for trading Risner, who might ride the bench anyway this year, if Moody and Miners stayed healthy all year and can get something out of him before he hits free agency, I wouldn't be blown away if that were to be the case. Now, I wanted to know what you guys have to say about this. Do you think George Paton will add more picks? We love talking about trades here at the channel. I mean, trades are a thing where people always go, that's never going to happen until Russell Wilson gets traded to the Broncos. Tyreek Hill gets traded to the Dolphins. So it may seem outlandish until Schefter puts the tweet out and you're like, holy shit, it happened. All right. So here's what I'll say about Dalton Risner and the idea of trading him. All right. This offensive line has not been the most stable thing the last couple of seasons. The last thing I think they should be looking to do is unload key starter or just starters. I don't even put the word key there. With a new quarterback like Russell Wilson under center, you really want to start shaking things up up front when you're already a little bit uncertain at right tackle. I believe Billy Turner's going to come back and start week 1. But if it's Calvin Anderson, didn't win the job last year, it's probably not going to be a fun movie at right tackle. You want to ship away one of your starting guards and bank on Moody, who sure has had a good training camp, but it is training camp, and he's injured right now. So the last thing you want to do is play with fire right there and go, wow, I don't think that 6th-round pick or whatever it was going to be for Risner was worth getting when we are all of a sudden scrambling the Jets to find linemen midseason. All right, everyone, that is going to do it for us on today's show. I appreciate all of you for tuning in and making us a part of your day. We'll see you guys later with probably more Broncos trade rumors.